It's weed whacking season, so here's another weed whacking video coming to you from none other than Dumb Luck. I should say low quality weed whacker video. This model is relatively new, and as you can see, the pull cord does this when you try to start it. The owner purchased this only a couple of months ago. It was built in 2017, though now we're in mid-May of 2019. It is a Troy-Bilt 4-cycle, it says jump start, which means I guess you can put an electric starter in here at the top if you wish. Model TB6044 and an XP. Now I just want to show you the other manufacturer labels. There's the data manufacturer label, and here's the one that shows that it's intended for moderate use and so forth. Let's get into this machine and see if we can't figure out what's going on with this starter mechanism. Alright, the first thing we have to do is remove the pull starter cover. I don't know if you can come over and show these folks, but there are 4 screws that have to be removed. They are Torx screws, T25 size. One here, here, and then down in the back there are 2 that are hidden down in these sockets. So let's get those removed. So you'd think this would come off right away, but no. Look here to the side. What looks like a pop rivet holding it on is actually a small screw with a hex head. And to remove that, you need a 5/64 Allen wrench. And here's that little devil, so I'm going to put that on a magnet to not lose it. Alright, now we just wrestle this piece off, pull it back on the covering, and let's take a look inside the pull start cover. I pull it. Well, now the cord fully retracts. Doesn't seem to be anything wrong with this part of the pull start mechanism, so we're just going to set that aside. So where does that pull start mechanism attach? Right here, if we can get a shot looking down. So here's this little fan. These 2 pawls are supposed to be engaged by the pull start mechanism that we just removed. And when the thing starts spinning, they retract out of the way. But things here look a little bent. And as I turn this thing, if you take a look right here, you'll see this fan blade is digging in to the metal. Something happened either at the factory or during use. Maybe the homeowner stuck something in there, I have no idea, that's causing this fan to interfere with the rest of the mechanism. And you see there's maybe a little bit of rust here. Maybe it got left outside a little bit. There's a stress crack in this small fan. It may be more visible now as I flex it. You see that right here? There's this crack behind that pawl. And this pawl is bent. So somewhere along the line, these pieces of machinery collided and cracked this fan. So we're going to take the next steps, like in my prior video, to unscrew this split shaft and remove the fan and see if we can't straighten it and possibly even braze the crack. This is a relatively inexpensive part, so the wisest choice is probably to just replace it. But I'm a cheapskate and want to see if I get this thing running. So for the heck of it, I'm going to try and braze it. Alright, Dumb Luck, back again. As in my previous video, I'm going to show you how you can disassemble this split shaft. To do so, I use the trick of putting a soft rope down inside the combustion chamber by removing the spark plug, threading the rope down in there so it takes up some of the space, and then I will put locking pliers on this part of the shaft, unscrew it. That'll move the piston up, and when the piston hits the rope that's in the cylinder, it won't be able to continue traveling, so it'll effectively halt the piston movement, which will allow me to have the shaft immobilized so I can then be able to unscrew. So here goes. We start out, move your spark plug wire. You need a 5/8 inch deep socket, or spark plug wrench is preferred so you won't break the ceramic potentially. So here we go with that. Loosen her up. Whoa, and there goes my spark plug. Not to fear. And let's take a look at the spark plug. It has a little bit of oil on it, probably just because I've been tipping this engine upside down and every which way, but it's so clean. The ceramic in here is white. There's no carbon buildup. There's no pitting, anything happening here. It's just more evidence that this engine has probably been run very little. So I'm just going to set the spark plug aside, and hopefully I can do this without taking off this plastic cowling. I'm going to feed this rope down into the spark plug hole. I am going to grab a tool like that Torx screwdriver. See if I can't use that to help shove this down in there without trying to be careful not to booger up the spark plug hole threads, of course. Let's see what happens if I turn this now by hand. There. The piston is now pushing up against that rope. So that's why it won't turn. So that's what I was counting on. Now I'm going to get a solid grip on this, hopefully, with some vice grip locking pliers. It may strip parts of the outside of this, but it doesn't really matter because hopefully this won't be an activity you have to repeat. So here come the vice grips. And I believe this is a normal thread, and that counterclockwise will disconnect this shaft. And as you can see from the top view, the top half of this shaft is turning, but the fan is not. So a few more turns and we should have this liberated. There we go. Oh, there's a healthy dose of pine needles and other crud that fell in there. And there's no, I don't think there's any thread locking compound in there. I'm just blowing to get some crud out. Alright, notice there's this little star washer, which in my prior video I pointed out was not doing a good job of keeping the fan from slipping. So I may replace that with a split style lock washer. But for now I'm just going to carefully lift this up, try to keep that washer from going flying. There we go. Alright, so now underneath here there's just a flat washer, and there you have it. There's not, it's interesting, there's a key way cut into this shaft, but there is no key inserted in there that I can tell, unless it's some other part that I haven't seen. Alright, this is a good stopping point because now we have the broken part removed and we'll move on to seeing if we can repair it. Alright, so we removed the fan and we remembered that at least one of the fan blades here was bent. And if I put it on a flat surface like the top of my welding table, we might be able to figure out which ones are causing this thing to teeter. So if you come over here and let one blade at a time hang off the edge, you can see here it's still teetering. Try that one, teetering, and so on. But I know the crack leads this way. So if I bring this one, let that blade hang off the edge, you can see it no longer teeters in any direction. That's the offending blade. So we're going to take our pliers, or some pliers, and see if I can't just bend that up a bit to get it more in the same plane as the other blades. Yeah, I'm satisfied. Now I'm just going to pop it back here, back on the shaft, and just to see if it spins freely. I'm going to pull the rope out of the spark plug hole and see if I can't get this to rotate and not hit anything. I'm watching over here to see if it's going to hit the metal, and no, it's got good clearance there. And actually earlier I did take the cowling off before I started the video. It was also hitting this oil dipstick plastic piece right here. So now it's clearing all of those, and they look to all be roughly in the same plane. Alright, so now for the crazy step. I'm going to see if I can't braze that crack just for the heck of it. Alright folks, now just to clarify, Dumb Luck, its affiliates, its associates, its family members, our friends, anyone you know or we know, does not recommend trying to repair this small fan because it will be spinning at high RPMs and could disintegrate, causing personal injury. So if you're dumb enough to proceed with this, then it is your fault, not mine, if you get injured, okay? Duh. So, that said, here we go. First thing I'm going to do is find the end of the crack in the fan, which is right about here, and I'm going to drill a 16th inch diameter hole at the end of the crack to stop it from progressing, and then hopefully stop it from becoming a projectile which maims me. Perfect. You can see the crack runs right into that hole, so that should stop the crack from advancing. If more stress gets applied, you know, it's got nowhere to go because it ends in a round hole. Alright, let's have a go removing these parts. I've got a little pointy awl. I'll get in behind here and see if I can't slide this clip off. It's probably going to fly across the shop. Oh, well, you know, it stayed put. Yay. And I'll get the other one. These little clips go in a groove, and they keep the springy parts here from moving. Alright, now I'm going to carefully lift this up, and take note of how the little fine springs under here are attached. One end goes up against this little bent over portion of the fan, and I'm going to show you the back side. This other side, it wraps around right there. Is that right? Yeah, that's correct. And one side pushes up against this side. I believe that part's called the pawl. Alright, so now I'm going to carefully lift this up and put my finger to hold it so the spring doesn't try to go flying across the room. See if it comes off. Yay, it did. It came off. And I'll set that aside and release the tension on the spring. I'll carefully lift the spring off, trying not to maim it. Same with the other side. Take that off and carefully remove the spring. Notice on here the the little wire is bent, it's poking straight up, and the other one here goes sideways up against this stop. So if you just remember that these point up, that should help you when you go to put it back together. Alright, now we'll move on to the repair. Okay, YouTube, I said I was going to braze this crack, but I got the wild hair idea that I might be able to tack it with some spot welds using my handy dandy Harbor Freight spot welder. So I'm going to clamp down here on the crack. We made sure that both sides of the crack were in the same plane. It was trying to spring itself out of the way, but I'm at one end. I got some light pressure in here. I'm going to give it a quick flick of the switch. And this might even hold better than a braze, and it's not going to add a bunch of mass to throw the thing out of balance. It's certainly removing a little bit of mass with those sparks. Well, I think those series of about 10 spot welds really did the trick. I'm going to hit it with a wire brush here just for a little cleanup. That way let's get a better view of the welds. And then I'll give it a test by flexing the fan along the crack line to see if it's going to fail. Because I think if I try to give it some good flexion and it doesn't snap, that's probably more lateral forces being loaded than this thing should ever experience when it's in operation. Just spinning under its own mass, which is probably no more than a few grams. Alright, so here I'm going to try and flex this, and you can watch on the camera. You can maybe zoom in on that. Alright, here goes. I'm going to try and flex this. I mean, I'm flexing, pushing on this with enough pressure that if I push any harder, I'm going to start bending the fins. Well, folks, we put it back together, just reversing what we did originally. You may need to refer back to the clips where I had the little springs and the pawls. That was a little bit tricky putting that back together. But it didn't come out perfect, but I think it is what you might call good enough.